So we're going to be talking about how we can both save the planet and your wallet and save some money. And as Elizabeth introduced me, I am the second name here, Polly Panitz. I'm a volunteer with Energy Masters, and I'll tell you a little bit about Energy Masters. But I just wanted to mention that I worked on this presentation with Megan DeCesar, and unfortunately she couldn't be here today, but I wanted to give her some credit for her participation here. I want you to know that this is a passion of mine, saving the planet. And of course, we're all trying to protect our wallets, but being more energy efficient. And that drew me into this program through EcoAction Arlington. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program. I happen to be a pediatrician, so my professional self really does not overlap with this material, but it's been a personal interest of mine. Okay, now, there we go. So you are muted. You don't really need to pay attention to this. We've already taken care of it. Let me tell you a little bit about the Energy Masters program in case anyone's interested. This is a program that started in 2011, initially only in Arlington, although it was expanded to Alexandria in 2015. And through this program, we volunteers have been trained on issues relating to energy and water efficiency. So the first component is a training program where different experts are brought in from local bodies like EPA, Department of Energy, and other Arlington residents. So first we're trained in these areas, and then we are taken out into the community, into identified apartment complexes that house residents in low-income settings. And we provide weatherization and conservation measures for the residents. Unfortunately, because of COVID, this has been curtailed a bit, but hopefully that will resume quickly. We provide light bulbs and weatherization and water conservation measures that have been shown by data collection to really make a difference in terms of people's energy bills. So I wanted you to know about this program because it's pretty phenomenal. What we're going to talk about today, and I only plan to speak for about a half an hour, is first some basics about your bills, to talk about what average bills look like in our area, to next talk about, this is slightly out of order, some efficiency tips, and then to go into issues related to managing the finances of your bills, have payment plans, maybe even financial assistance, if that's something that's relevant to you, because we do have a lot of resources. So first, billing basics. And I forgot to ask you to respond to our first poll. Our first poll was supposed to be about what are you primarily interested in? What motivated you to come here today and hear this lecture so that we can make sure we're meeting your needs. So if you could just take a few moments to respond and tell us what your interests are and what motivated you to come today, that will be helpful for me. Maybe I can address some of those questions later on once we stop the recording, and also in terms of future educational opportunities. So back to billing basics. Let's start with fundamentals. Your utilities are made up of 3 components. Here, they usually billed separately. And almost all of us Virginia residents pay utilities, whether you're renting or you own your home. There are some renters that don't necessarily have to. It's paid for by the owner of the building, but for the most part in Virginia, we all pay electricity, gas, and water, and they're billed to us separately. Well, what kinds of bills do we all pay? We're going to talk about how that varies from individual to individual. But if we're talking about apartment dwellers, on average in Virginia, we pay somewhere between $100 and $158 a month total for our 3 utility bills. And that obviously depends on so many variables, one big one being how large is your home, how large is your apartment. So let's say the average renter in a 1-bedroom apartment is spending somewhere in the order of $47 a month for gas and $60 a month for electricity. This is a significant amount of money, and therefore, this is why we're here having this discussion today, because there's a lot of opportunity for cutting costs and saving energy. Why do the numbers vary so much? Well, obviously, how big is your house? Is it a studio apartment? Is it a 8,000 square foot individual home? That's one obvious factor. But it also has to do with what type of heat you have. We're mostly going to be talking about bills for those that have gas heat, because across our country, most of us have heat systems that are fueled by gas. It's unusual. I actually live in a more energy efficient home, and we have electric heat, and therefore my bill looks very different than probably most of you. Where you live determines what your utilities look like. Obviously, the seasons and the intensity of the seasons, especially the summer heat. And you're going to see that when we start looking at bills and actual numbers. And then how tight is what we call the envelope of your building. And here's a diagram here that's showing you with these red arrows, the heat loss that occurs across uninsulated parts of your home, whether it's an attic, whether it's a wall that's poorly insulated. I once lived in a home that had a bedroom over the garage, and it had 2 exterior walls that were very poorly insulated, and then the floor had a lot of heat loss into the garage, and that room was so much colder, and we had to pump more heated air in there as a result. So most of us have vulnerable areas where we live, where we have heat loss that occurs to these poorly insulated parts of our home. As I said, an attic, a wall, windows. What are your windows like? Are they double paned? Is there air leak around the window? Do you have uninsulated crawl spaces? A lot of us will have these crawl spaces we don't even know about underneath floors or in the eaves. So do you have heat loss? Our electricity and gas bills fluctuate a lot with the seasons. So again, the seasons determine so much about our usage, but when you start looking at how you use utilities, you need to look at seasonal patterns. And you see here on the left, a hypothetical example of electricity usage over the course of a year. And you see that in this case, the electricity usage goes up in the summer months. And this is a local hypothetical. So when it's hot, electricity usage goes up because one of the primary drivers here is going to be air conditioning. And then you will see that after the seasons cool off in October, there's sort of a flattening of the electric use. Now that's also pretty obvious because we still have refrigerators plugged in. We still have dryers that we're using. We still have lights that we're using. So the baseline in electricity is going to be a lot higher than the gas, which drops off more. But you see this very obvious seasonal pattern with the electricity peaking during the hot summer months, as opposed to on the right, the gas peaking during the cold months when we are using our heaters. Now, most of us at baseline use the gas mostly to heat our water. And then, of course, that depends on your house, whether you have a gas stove or a gas fireplace or other usages of gasoline. So your baseline might be a little bit different than this example. So here is an example, a basic example of an electric bill. And we can look at it to get some information. Again, to look at patterns in your energy use and what is the lowest, and why are some months lower, and how low does it go? And therefore, let's try to identify some ways you can conserve. So we look at this bill, and number 6 is going to be your meter usage. Number 7 is going to tell you how many days you're being billed for. Number 8 is going to tell you what schedule you're on. Most of us are on Schedule 1, which is a basic residential schedule. And number 9 is going to give you, off to the right, the total kilowatt hours that you have used for this period of time. In this case, it's May 14th to June 15th. So it's slightly more than a month. It's 32 days. This resident has used 877 kilowatt hours. So your energy usage is expressed or measured as kilowatt hours, which is 1 kilowatt of power sustained for an hour. So that's the basic unit that you will see on your bill. Then number 10 and 11 has to do with your meter reading. Whether you confirm that or not, I don't know. But what I think is most pertinent here is off to the right, looking at your usage history. And you could even plot this out on a graph, as I showed you previously, to see that in this example, August, September, and October, the electric use peaks significantly. And obviously that's during the hot summer months. In November, there's still a significant amount of use. That's sort of interesting. Okay, it was a particularly hot November. And then it comes down and hovers. As I said, there's sort of a high baseline of usage because we have all of these other electric appliances that we're using at baseline in our homes. What appliances drive my energy use? This is overall energy use, not parsing it out, gas versus electric, but heating is huge, 42%. Cooling is at least 11%, and that's going to be individually variable. Look at this, WH is water heating, 15%. So something we don't think about when we turn the water faucet on is how much energy we use to heat that water. And then of course, a lot depends on what kind of water heater you have. And then we have this next big category of other. In other, the top usage of energy is going to be refrigerator, freezer. And after that, I made a list because I'm always trying to think about what do we use in our house. The next biggest consumer of electricity is going to be your dryer, and so on and so forth. So lighting is a little further down the list. It's that refrigerator, freezer, and dryer that's consuming a fair amount of energy. And then water. We're not going to talk so much about water today, and that will be in another seasonal talk. But on average, we all spend somewhere in the order of $36 a month on water bills. And look how this breaks down. About a quarter of our water usage is flushing toilets. And that's why in Energy Masters, one of the first things we do is put these bladders in toilets to decrease the water usage every time you flush. Showers, 20% just for showering, and another 20% every time you turn on the faucet, and so on and so forth. So some of us are billed monthly, others are billed quarterly. Some of us have water bills that also include sewer charges. But so these bills tend to be less than the gas and electric, but they are still significant. And there are significant ways that we can have a positive impact on our water usage. So now let's talk a bit about energy efficiency and how we can both save the planet and save money. And what I wanted to do is here again in the chat space, I would love for you guys to tell me, and I think I will stop sharing for a minute just so I can see your responses. Can you just stick into the chat? What is your experience with your thermostat? Do you never use it? Do you not even know what it is, where it is? Do you use it sometimes, like walk in a room to warm it or cool it and adjust the thermostat? Or do you adjust it when you leave the room to save energy? And you might pick multiple options here. Do you use your thermostat to program, to set a program for the day and nighttime usage and rarely touch it once it's been programmed? Do you use your thermostat to track your usage? So again, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and ask you again, just to put in the chat how you use, oh, maybe I can, oh, I'm sorry. I can see this without unsharing.
And I'm happy to read them too.
Oh, I got it. Easy. We're a small group, so that's easy. Okay, good. So what I've gotten so far is that that people use their thermostat to program their energy usage across the day. And that was the only response that people put in. So they're primarily programming and not adjusting it on a regular basis, which is really good to hear. Okay, what happened here? Here we go. So in fact, programming your thermostat is best for energy efficiency and for comfort. And what we know is turning back your thermostat, and I'll define what that means because that depends on whether it's winter or summer, can save you as much as 10% of your energy usage or your energy bills just by setting back your thermostat 7 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So in the winter, obviously, that's setting it down, and in the summer, it's raising it. And since I participated in this program this year, I set a goal for myself. I always in the summer set our thermostat to 78, but in the winter, I usually had it higher. And I set my thermostat consistently to 68. And I noticed, and if you haven't done this, you probably will notice the cold, vulnerable parts of where you live by the window or by the chimney or by some uninsulated, poorly insulated part of your home is going to feel chilly. And I really had to adjust where I spent my time and how I dressed. And that's what I really wanted to share with you is if that's our goal, to save energy and save money on our bills, then we need to dress optimally in order to do this. And it's hard. It's hard for some of us because we like wearing t-shirts and shorts or whatever kind of minimal clothing is comfortable for you, but it really doesn't make sense given where our world is today and if we're trying to save money. So dressing optimally, and that's just what I did. I actually had blankets, little throw blankets scattered around, and I just dressed. Here we are, we're spending more time at home, and I had comfy, thick socks and sometimes using more scarves around my neck to keep me warm. And that's something to keep in mind, and it might be a new habit you want to incorporate. Also, really importantly, knowing where your vents are and knowing that they are open and clean and that they're not blocked. So you might need to look at where your furniture is, where are your vents? If they're on the floor, make sure that furniture is not blocking them. Make sure you keep them open. Here's an example of a dirty vent. It's actually pretty easy to get a vacuum hose up there or to actually unscrew it. We have some that come out, and I can actually take them outside and hose them and keep them clean. And then next, how do we use our shades or our curtains or our blinds? This can be huge. By closing the shades or the blinds in the summer to minimize the heat coming in and heating that window and that part of the house can significantly cut back on the cooling that needs to happen. So closing the curtains, the shutters, and the blinds during the day, especially in the summer when the heat is pouring in, and sometimes depending on your orientation, it only needs to be to a certain part of your home. I know last summer I spent some time in a cottage in New England, and we had this huge picture window that was facing south, and I had to put that blind down or else I needed air conditioning throughout the day. If I had the blind down then and opened it once the sun had moved along, I wasn't using air conditioning at all. Then in the winter, you're going to flip that. In the winter, you might want the sun pouring in to passively warm your home. And at night, you might want to put those shades down again or pull your curtains closed to minimize heat loss. And you might even want to think about what do you have up against your windows to help you with this. Another big user of energy can be some of these things that we have plugged into the wall. I have two pictorial examples. Space heaters. A big problem with space heaters can be that you plug them in and then maybe they run all day or you forget about them. Can you put them on a timer? And same with all of these things that we plug into outlets, whether it's our smartphones or whether it's a clock or a coffee maker or a computer, anything with lights on it is consuming energy. And the best way to know is it consuming energy is just to touch that, because when you touch that charger, you can feel the warmth of the electricity and know that you are consuming energy. So how do we rectify this? Well, we put these things on timers, we unplug them, or you can get smart plugs and smart outlets that you can actually program to shut down after the charging is complete. Also, some of these appliances like space heaters, again, have these emergency settings or aux settings where it will kick in very quickly and efficiently to warm a room. And then if you forget that it's on that setting, you're going to be burning a lot of energy over a prolonged period of time. So make sure you take it off that auxiliary or EM setting. Again, opt for space heaters that have timers or use one of these smart devices where you can actually program it or unplug it. Then there are light bulbs. And as I was talking about energy use, energy used to light our homes falls way below our heating, our electricity, our refrigerator use, our dryer use. But then there's this fairly significant block of energy use for lighting our homes. Most of us still rely on incandescent old-fashioned light bulbs. They're least expensive and least efficient. Ironically, even though they only cost less than $1 to buy one, over the long term, as you will see at the bottom, over the long term, they are much more expensive to use. So if we look at 25,000 hours of light production and how much that costs to supply using an incandescent light bulb, it's $169 versus going all the way over here into this column under LEDs. We have spent $30 over those 25,000 light hours. So LEDs are very good long-term investments. Of course, if you're a renter, you might not want to invest upfront in an LED. So maybe then you go with a compact fluorescent light bulb, which we call CFLs. They are somewhat more efficient. So you can see again, the example at the bottom, 25,000 light hours costs $50. That's significantly less than the incandescent bulb cost. Now CFLs have few major drawbacks. One is the quality of the light. There's a slight delay in it reaching its maximum illumination. Also, it's really important to know that CFLs contain mercury, so they need to be disposed of carefully. And if you break one in the home, you need to clean up and wash up and dispose of properly. This is also a great example. Someone at Energy Masters created this, and there's a reference at the bottom. But here's an example of this man, Mario, and how much money he can save by turning the lights off. So in this example, Mario wakes up in the morning and turns on the lights in his bedroom. He spends an hour getting ready, and then he leaves to go to work, and oops, he forgets to turn off the light and doesn't get home for 9 hours. So let's say he has 5 60-watt incandescent bulbs in his room, which is not, that's pretty typical. And he's now left them on for 10 hours, whereas he only needed an hour of light. So how much did he save? When he left the lights on, he burned 3,000 watt hours, which is expressed as 3 kilowatt hours, and he spent 36 cents. Okay, that doesn't seem like that much, but that represents about 11% of his daily energy use. That's significant. If he had turned the lights off, he would have used 300 watt hours or 0.3 kilowatt hours, which would have cost him 3.6 cents. So that made a huge difference, and he could have saved 32.4 cents in just one day by turning off the lights. So this is an easy fix for saving money over time and also saving energy. If you are in a home that you own, or if you your landlord is replacing appliances, looking for Energy Star efficiency labels can save significant amounts of money. So I just wanted to give you 2 examples of what these look like. These appliances need to be regularly maintained and cleaned. Ducts need to be sealed. Filters need to be replaced. As a renter, you might not know that, whether you're responsible or the landlord is responsible, and also how often your particular filters need to be replaced. Some need to be replaced monthly, some quarterly. I know the ones that we have in our house, it's every 6 months. So now we'll just talk briefly about staying on top of your bills. I think that Aisha is here from Eco Action Arlington to answer questions. If you have more questions about this topic, this is not an area that I have a great deal of expertise about, but Megan and I did go online and review what is out there for us as Arlington residents to stay on top of our bills. And the first one is alerts that you can get from Dominion Energy. So Dominion Energy does offer this. I've been on their website. Your electric bill changes, as we talked about, each month. So based on how much energy you have used, you can make this calculation. You can set a threshold for an energy usage alert so that you'll receive a text, an email, whatever you prefer, to 1 or 2 people when you exceed that threshold. And why is this important, both in terms of your pocketbook and anticipating a bill that you're going to need to pay, but also if you're using extraordinary amounts of energy, you need to figure out why. Is there someone in my home who's changed the programming on my thermostat, or is turning things up or down, or leaving windows open? Why has this happened? Has something broken? Is something not working efficiently? So just looking at your bill after the fact, obviously, you're going to have to pay that bill. So having this ability to be alerted by Dominion can really save you. Dominion also has payment options. You can sign up for budget billing that avoids seasonal ups and downs. So again, you with either alone or with Dominion will look at your energy usage over the last year. You might even want to look over the last 2 years, because our seasons change from year to year, and you might spend more in previous years. And look at what you're spending and figure out an average, and then the budgeted amount, and then you will be billed a regular amount based on your previous 12 months usage. so that you don't have fluctuations in energy bills. So that can make it easier to plan. Dominion Energy also offers payment plans, and here's a number, and you should have all received a copy of this PowerPoint so that you'll have these resources. There are also a number of financial assistance programs. In the first year of the pandemic, there were many more that have since been removed, but I wanted you to have access to these again in your PowerPoint that you hopefully have or can get online. These resources that are available locally through Arlington, if you need financial help, either for repairs or for financial assistance or for looking at energy conservation where you live. Here's resources on the state level. Again, crisis assistance with bills. You need to go through Virginia Department of Social Services. You'll speak to a social worker, and based on your financial situation, you may or may not qualify for certain financial assistance, or also assistance with heating or cooling emergencies in your home. Here's another program through Dominion offering bill payment assistance or free energy efficiency upgrades. So more excellent resources that you may or may not have access to. And here's a whole variety of resources that we put together with the Energy Masters folks, other resources out there, Virginia poverty law, that's going to be law assistance, legal assistance, housing assistance, having to do with weatherization. Some people may qualify to bring in experts to actually weatherize your home to minimize that heat loss that we talked about. Washington gas assistance, water, so more specific to your utility. Last, before we finish, I invite you to fill out the evaluation form. You can either copy this now or click on the link and save it and give us some feedback as to how this webinar did or did not meet your needs so that we can refine this in the future.
I'm also happy to send it out in the email.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great. And here's more information about Energy Masters if you're interested in participating in this wonderful program. And here's some emails. I think, yeah, I'll leave that up.
And thanks, Polly, for presenting. I just wanted to go back to one slide real quick, just to provide a little bit more information about the crisis assistance, if that's okay.
Sure. You want me to go back, or can you?
If you could go back, that'd be great.
Yeah.
It's the one that says the Virginia Energy Assistance Program statewide. Yeah, that one. Perfect.
Excellent.
So I just want to provide a little bit more information about this. This is important because the state of Virginia will help, and locally Arlington will help you if you have, like Polly was saying, a cooling or heating emergency. If you lose heat or hot water, that's considered an emergency. So the Department of Social Services can pay for certain repairs. If equipment breaks down, if you might need to purchase new equipment, it just depends on the scenario, and they can repair or replace things. They can provide supplemental things like fuel tanks. They can help with security deposits, and then any utility payment. So anything like lack of heat, any imminent utility cutoffs, or unsafe heating equipment, those are kind of some eligibility requirements. And then if you go to that website that's listed there, there's a screening tool, and it'll have more information for you to apply. And that the Arlington number that's listed on, I think it was on the next page, that has more, you can directly talk to a social worker if you need assistance. There's a whole application in English and Spanish. It can help you offset any fueling costs for fuel assistance. And that's usually available between October and November, if I'm not mistaken. And then the cooling assistance program is for utility bills between June and August. So right now is a time period where right now there aren't as many assistance programs. It's more so the summertime and the winter time. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention about that. But just know that that's available year round. So that's a program that, the state offers throughout the year, regardless of the pandemic. And then some of these other programs that Polly mentioned with, Dominion and other providers, take advantage of those. If you need assistance, they're there to help you. You can set up payment programs, things like that. But some of those things where you can kind of track your billing are helpful, just so that you can kind of stay ahead of things as well. That's all I just wanted to add. So thanks.
Thank you.